Welcome to another edition of Pages Promotions Virtual Book Festival, Autumn 2020, a production of Indie Reads TV. We find our home on CNM TV in Troy, Michigan. Today, we are back for round two of our conversation with Mark Bello, local author and attorney and all-around nice guy. And we're going to talk about his writing and we're just going to have, average everyday little conversation here in the middle of the afternoon. Mark, welcome. Thanks for coming back. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I'd much rather talk about what we were talking about off camera.
No, can't. Sorry. Okay, so
look at her. She looks so sweet and nice.
I know. Deborah, you're so lucky.
Oh my God.
Okay, so let's start. Mark, I've been thinking about questions I could ask you all day while I was working and, simmering things in the back of my head. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, I know that because they are legal thrillers, all of your books have a prevailing theme throughout them. But what I'm really curious to know is, do your characters also have a prevailing trait? Is there something that is, what's the word, commensurate with each one of your main characters across this series? Is there something that's like super similar?
Boy.
Look at that, I stumped him already.
They have certain character traits. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, is there one character trait that you find is at the top of the list for every single one of them? Like if you were to make a list, it would be at the top of all of your characters.
Well, let me start by saying that I didn't conceive them that way. I didn't set out to make certain characters this way or that way. What I have tried to do, successfully or not, is have them grow from novel to novel. Mm-hmm. So, I took two kids who had a traumatic experience in the first book, and they're now one is a college student and one is a senior in high school in my fifth book. And
so your characters do cross over into other books as well.
Yes, yeah,
that's very cool.
And they've become young men versus children in my first book. And one of them, as you'll see, if you read my fifth book, Betrayal High, one of them becomes kind of a hero, for lack of a better way to say it, of my fifth novel.
Okay, that answers my question. Very cool.
Well, there's more to that answer, though.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but Jennifer Tracy, the hero of the first book, I've struggled with having stories that continue her as a prominent character in future books. The books are the Zachary Blake Thrillers, and Zachary Blake is the principal protagonist of. Oh, actually, unusually, my principal protagonist is a secondary protagonist in almost every one of my books. The client is usually the principal protagonist.
Right. And Zachary Blake is the one that keeps the series together. And
that kind of is unusual for most authors. Mm-hmm. But he's grown in every book. From a struggling, down on his luck, teeter on alcohol and drug use, to a rather prominent, powerful lawyer. So there's been a progression for him, and primarily he's the one that has changed the most and for the most good. And
Awesome.
again, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, actually it does.
that's what came to mind.
Yeah, no, that actually extends the answer that I was expecting. So, woohoo, thank you. Deborah, go ahead.
So we have to read your books in order. They're not standalone. Is that right?
Well,
If the characters are continuing on?
it depends on how you look at it. If you're looking at a novel for character development to follow, let's say, the progression of Zachary Blake's character from 1 to 6, then yes, you would be advised to read them all in order.
But they could
If you're
stand
looking-
alone without you getting lost.
Well, that's my point. If you're looking
Okay.
at for a book, let's say about a police officer shooting an innocent black man, then you can read Betrayal in Black as a standalone, knowing he's got a great lawyer. You won't know where that lawyer has come from in 4 books. Betrayal in Black is my 4th book. But the book can be read that way.
So your books actually appeal to 2 different camps of readers, ones that like standalones and series books. That's wonderful.
And people who have read them and reviewed them have kind of said that you can read this book this way, or you can read this book that way. I would recommend that you start at the beginning, but it works as a standalone. And I tend to agree with that. My preference obviously would be that you start at the beginning with me and follow the series, not for pecuniary reasons, but because I promise you, I haven't written a single book for money. That has,
Right.
if I were going to do that, I would have chosen something else.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of I don't know, character development, as we discussed, it would be advisable to read them from the beginning. For the purpose of topic, if you want to read a book about, consistent with, let's say, what happened in Parkland, Florida, then you would want to read Betrayal High.
Okay.
And you have read Betrayal of Faith or any other follow-up book to understand and appreciate what Betrayal High is about.
Makes sense to me. Everyone else, feel free to turn on your microphones. And if you have any questions, now would be a good time. I know I've got more questions, but I want to open up the room to anyone else.
I don't have a question, but I do, Mark, I do understand what you're talking about as a writer of series. I've written a couple of them, and I think if you are a reader who's interested, if you read because you get involved with the characters and what's going on with characterization and their development, then reading from beginning book to the end book is important for those people who love characters. For people who are reading because they love the plot and the action and whatever thematic thing might be involved there, then it really doesn't matter. Because the books have a beginning and a middle and an end. At least that's the way I try to write mine.
I hope they do. I hope they do.
Yeah. Well, some series actually
Never end.
don't have an end. And I refuse to do that. I don't know about you. I like them to have an ending,
I never thought about intentionally leaving something open-ended. I really didn't do that. There are Betrayal of Justice, my 2nd book, and Betrayal in Blue, the 3rd one, kind of follow each other. They're the only 2 that do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have in the 1st book a white supremacist who does some bad things, and his story comes to a conclusion. Try not to give things away. And then
Right.
a 2nd white supremacist in book 3, Betrayal in Blue, kind of takes over for where his predecessor left off. So the two, I wouldn't call them sequels, but they follow each other, and they're probably best read together. But I didn't intend to leave book 2 open, nor did I. It ends.
So the question then becomes, did you intentionally try to write a follow-up to book 2? And is that how book 3 happened?
That's the only time I did that.
Okay.
Is 2 to 3. First of all, I never fashioned myself, as I've said to you many times, Diana.
Mhm.
I've never fashioned myself as an author. I had a bucket list thing that I wanted to do when I stopped practicing law, and that was betrayal of faith, and I did that. And then
it just became this disease, and now here we are.
As I have famously said, things start to piss me off, and I was supposed to use a keyword. I'm sorry, pick me off, and 5 books followed.
Right.
There's always an issue that I say, darn, that not only am I angry, but that would make a good book. And that's kind of how a 6-book series has developed. It wasn't intentional, even from book 1 to book 2. I didn't think there was going to be a book 2.
Right.
And here I am 6 books later, writing a 7th. So
I understand.
It's just been a kind of I've described it in the past, and I'll do it again, an out-of-body experience. I actually read my own work and say, I wrote this?
Yeah, where did that come from?
I don't, it's kind of strange.
Does anyone else have questions for Mark?
How long does it take you to write a book and like get it out there?
It depends on the book.
So give
Average.
us average, yeah.
Betrayal of Faith took years. Betrayal of Justice took 2 months.
So the last one, Betrayal High, how long did that take for you to get through the first draft, the edit process, and then finally take it to press?
Well, the last one is being written.
Okay, but I mean the one that just.
I know you do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to your point, I'm having difficulty with that one. I'm writing a book about the immigration crisis from a legal standpoint, following 2 different types of immigrants. One, a Hispanic South American who was escaping tyranny in a South American country and being treated like crap when they come to America, and put in cages and the stuff you're hearing about on the news, which is, as you guys know from past experience with me, what I write about. I write about real life experiences that anger me,
Right.
and that I can't believe our country is doing these things.
Right.
And that's one of them. What's
So
going on at the southern border causes me a lot of grief. I can't believe that we as a country are treating people like that. The other immigrant is a Muslim who goes back to Syria/Turkey, where all the trouble with the Kurds and Turkey is happening at the border between Syria and Turkey. And he goes to visit her parents, who are stuck there, and gets imprisoned by ISIS. So those 2 stories are going back and forth from one to the other. And I had no trouble writing 100 pages. It's writing 100 more that I'm having a lot of difficulty with.
So to that point, what's the biggest hurdle that you're encountering in the creative process? Not the political stuff, not the topical in the newspaper today stuff. From a creative writer standpoint, what's the biggest hurdle you're having in getting this next book done? I mean, is it like character development? Is it scene and place and setting? Is
No,
it
it's never
building?
character.
Is it that roller coaster of building and releasing tension? What's the biggest struggle creatively?
I'm trying to get from point C to point P.
Mhm.
If I wanted to write 10 pages, I could probably write 10 pages really easily.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm looking at and what I'm having trouble with is if I decide to do this, whatever this is, will it lead to that, whatever that is? Will I be able to write 50, 60, 100, 100? I've got to, in my mind, I've got to write 200 more pages. I like my books to be around 300 pages.
Yep, that's about average.
So how do I fill with compelling dialogue and filler 200 more pages? It's sort of like a hostage crisis. I mean, that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be I have it conceived in my mind. I just
So for
you know,
you,
maybe
it's
maybe you
about.
guys have experienced this.
So for you,
in my
it's about
mind, but it isn't hitting the page.
So it's about assembling the pieces so that they fit like a jigsaw puzzle. That's the piece
Something
you're
like
having
that.
trouble with. Okay,
And having enough pieces.
right.
I
Okay.
know where I want to go. I just don't know.
Got it.
I'm having
Julianne,
trouble.
you were gonna say, go ahead.
Yeah. Have you ever tried the thread process or the sticky note refrigerator? That's actually the first thing that I do is the sticky note refrigerator. I think of all these various things that get me to from your point C to point P. And then I put them all up there and then I draw threads between them. Have you tried that?
There you go.
I actually do the sticky note on the computer.
Oh, I need a bigger space. A big refrigerator. I write big books.
I have this 27-inch iMac screen here that is almost like a TV.
Oh,
So I don't know if you guys have seen these new iMacs, but
yeah,
it's a pretty impressive little machine.
and I think that's part of why Andrew has 4 or 5 different screens going on. Julianne, here's a tip for you. Staples, and anybody else who's interested, Staples sells butcher paper in 3 feet wide by 7 feet long pieces, and you can rip off however long you want, hang it on your wall and draw on your walls. I've been doing that for years.
I'm going to try that.
It works beautifully because you're not, marking up the walls with actual paint. It's removable, and you can roll it up when you're done and tuck it in the closet and refer to it later. But I found for that string method, it works really, really well.
My problem is more large chunks of dialogue and text, not small ideas. I'm like I said, the novel is conceived. I have the plot. I have where it's going. I know how it's going to end. I know the things that are going to happen in each version, in each.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 themes, so in each theme, I just need to make it a novel, for lack of a better way to say it. Instead of an outline.
Yeah, and we all say that's the easy part. Just sit down and write a book.
Now the question you asked me wasn't that this at all. It was about Betrayal High and what was it? I forgot. We were talking about how long it takes to write a book.
How long did it take to write Betrayal High?
6 months.
Okay.
The only book that took a really long time was the first one.
Okay.
Don't ask me why, because I can't really.
Because it was the first one. We all have difficulty with the first one.
Yeah, but I didn't. I just.
Yeah, it just takes longer because you've never done it before.
Well, I kept putting it down. I was part of that was related to having a lot of other things to do.
I can relate.
I had a career for 30 years. The case resolved that betrayal of faith was based on resolved in 19. And the book was something I was going to write from 1987 until it was released in 2017 for the first time.
I understand.
So,
My first book took me 14 years, so I get
well,
it.
it didn't take me 14 years. It's just that
Well, with everything else that's happening in life, it takes 14 years.
That and I put it down a lot and then rewrote it. So
Right. I understand. Does anybody else have questions? I feel like I'm dominating the conversation here. So, I mean, Mark and I can sit and have conversations for days, and we've tried, and it works. So, Michael, Xander, Julianne, Deborah, Diana, anybody have any other questions? We've got about 9 minutes left of our episode today. So if you have any questions, now would be the time.
Nobody
Go
else
ahead, Julianne.
does, I always have questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the next book?
That's the one he was just talking about, the immigration issue.
I mean, when this one is out of your brain, where are you going from there?
something will make me angry. Right now, what makes me angry, and again, this is not a political discussion necessarily, but the whole Supreme Court thing makes me angry. But I've already written that book. And by the way, I want you guys to understand, as liberal and socially democratic as I am, I understand the process of appointing a Supreme Court justice. And Amy Coney Barrett is extremely qualified to be a Supreme Court justice, even though I don't share the same political ideology as she does. What makes me angry is the way they did this. They ran her through the Senate when they refused Obama's appointment. That's step one. And step two, we've got a pandemic in America, a real crisis. They can't get anything done on that, but in a week they can shove a Supreme Court justice through the Senate.
We all choose what's important in the moment, and that all changes from second to second.
But
so
that's just
doesn't surprise
unbelievable
me.
to me.
Doesn't surprise me.
So that's
Who
my
else
story, and I'm
has-
sticking to it.
Okay. Who else has creative writing questions for Mark? Deborah.
What's your favorite part of writing? I mean, like, I know you kind of touched on what was hard for you is a lot of times like the dialogue and everything and getting all of that pieced together into the larger part of the novel. But what's like your favorite?
Did I say that?
You did.
Kind of, yeah. I was listening. I might be, taking this out and talking to my children every once in a while because they keep coming up to me, but I'm paying attention.
I'm kind of surprised I said that because my favorite thing to write, I almost should be a screenwriter. I like writing dialogue, and my books are dominated by dialogue. I've had a couple of reviewers say they hate my stuff because all of the information comes from dialogue, and I don't write enough background. I'm trying to remember what the review said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably
it makes sense to me because you live in a world of conversation. For 30 years you practice law, which is all about interaction through conversation.
Especially a trial.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to write a trial. To me, a trial is all dialogue. It's all something somebody's speaking.
Sure.
And perhaps my migration to dialogue comes from trial experience. I find the trial part of my work the most compelling part of my work. So it's not surprising that I would find that to be the most compelling part of my books.
Sure.
Your question again, Diana, was what?
Deborah, the favorite part, that was your
yeah.
question, right?
Yes. Well, what's your favorite part? Which you kind of answered. by the dialogue.
Writing dialogue. Yeah, no
So
question.
what's your least favorite part?
Writing anything.
Anything else?
Writing anything else. I'm not a descriptor. I'll give you an example. I'm fascinated by the stuff that you write. So and so said this with sweat dripping down their face and a smirk on their cheek and I mean I just don't write that way. I like reading it, but it's not my style.
Okay.
One of the things I'll say, for instance, I like to describe dialogue rather than say he said. I will say he snarled.
Mm-hmm.
So I describe the tone of the conversation based on the adjective.
That's a good technique.
But
I'm sure, Deborah,
you
you
know,
teach that in your workshops all the time.
Yeah.
I
Quite
called
often.
her Diana.
That's all right. That's okay.
They start with D's.
What I want to call you is DA. I mean,
Well, that works too.
That works.
yeah,
That's how
DA,
it
by the
works.
way, would be a great name for a legal thriller writer, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have DA writing about the DA.
Yeah. Mildly redundant, but that's okay.
By the way, I try. You know, as you can see, I have somewhat of a warped sense of humor, and I do like to inject my personality into my book.
I think all of us do that.
mhm.
Zachary Blake's sense of humor, if he has one, is probably consistent with mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why when we were talking before in the green room was, that's why we're so surprised when we meet some of our favorite authors, because we have to stand back and say, wait a minute, this is not the you that was in this book. You in person is somebody different. So
Well, he's not me.
So
He
that's,
isn't
but
me,
that's
but
why
he's
I
a-
think it's
a different person.
interesting. That's why I think it's interesting when we finally get to meet our favorite authors, is because we see another side of them in person that we don't get to see in their books. And I think that's the fun part about festivals like this, is that we get to see that extra layer of who all of our author selves are.
That is sure true of D.A. Reed, that's for sure. Oh my God.
He's so nice.
Have all of you read her work? Have you guys all read her work? No?
No, we're still trying to convert them. Diana has read Deborah, but we're still working on converting everybody else.
Where's
I
Diana?
will
One of
be
the
reading.
young lady. That's Diana?
There she is.
Diana. Raise your hand.
Diana,
I
you read her, right?
I read two of hers. I read two of Mark's.
Would you have expected that to come out of her?
No,
Okay. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Stephen
know.
King.
I think that's the wonderment of it, though. That's the wonderment of what we get to do, is we get to play make-believe like actors. We get to play make-believe all the time. And people don't know until they meet us, which I think is super fun.
I agree with that, but our dear friend Deborah needs a psychiatric exam.
Does Xander actually wear white ears?
Well, I saw him wear white ears yesterday, so yes. Look, you guys, we are running out of time. I got to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This was a really great conversation. I'm glad we did this. Mark, thank you for taking the time out of your vacation in Florida to join us.
Just one more comment about what we're talking about. If I were to meet D.A. Reed for lunch, I would want to have somebody who I know sitting in the background, making sure I'm safe.
So Deborah, you're probably pretty proud of that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I've run
totally.
out of, I've have run out of fingers for the amount of people who look at my husband and say, so if you die, we look at her, right?
Yeah.
Or do you sleep with one eye open?
One
Or
eye, right, right.
Yeah. We got to wrap it up, guys. I'm out of time. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Mark, thank you
guys.
again for your time today. And I will post a link on our Facebook page for your
Alrighty.
book so people can look you up. Thank you
Thank you.
again, everybody, for joining us. This has been another edition of Pages Promotions Virtual Book Festival Autumn 2020, a production
guys.
of Indie Reads TV. We find our home on CNM TV in Troy, Michigan. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.